I have a question for you. What do you do when a developer who has made a game that you have loved and adored for years has decided at the last minute, or maybe not so much the last minute, but has subtly decided over the course of about a year and a half to 2 years to completely stop caring about the community that they've created while simultaneously lying to your face and telling you that all the improvements that you see, that all the content that you get, that all the quality that you receive is all because of the incredible community that has been created and curated by this developer. But then the content, the quality, the consistency has dropped off so steeply that now using phrases like that almost feels like a genuine insult. This is the question that the Destiny community currently finds itself faced with. If you're into the Destiny community, or honestly right now if you're even not into the Destiny community, you probably already know what this video is really going to be about, and you've probably already heard from content creators much bigger than myself, from voices much more knowledgeable than myself, from voices much more prolific and much more, I don't want to say enthusiastic because I'm a huge Destiny enthusiast, but people who are maybe a little bit more confident in their accusations, who can kind of speak to the state of the game from a perspective of somebody who's peeked behind the proverbial curtain a little bit. People like Aztecross, Fallout, Grenader Jake, Vanguard TV, and quite frankly, a host of others have been saying for, probably the last week and a half to 2 weeks, just how frustrated they are with the state of Destiny 2. And it's all kind of for varying reasons, but it's all kind of carried on the same vocal spectrum, in that Destiny 2 is an incredibly well-made game that has dropped the ball so hard in content, that is so frustrating to play, that is so rampant with issues, that now it feels like a genuine chore to log onto the game and complete anything. And nothing has been more emblematic of that than this most recent season, Season of the Deep. And the really annoying thing is that Season of the Deep at its core is actually relatively solid. Deep dives are really fun and insanely challenging once you get the pressure trials going, and even by themselves are pretty damn challenging. Salvage activity is admittedly pretty damn boring in my opinion, mostly because 99% of the entire activity is like 4 to 5 people going off and just spawn camping the ads where they walk into the arena, while 2 people, or in most cases in my experience 1 person, which is usually me, goes around and completes the objective because everybody else is way too hyper focused on just completing their bounties and could give a shit at the length of time it takes to complete the salvage activity. By itself, that's not necessarily a problem. It's not like that's really necessarily uncommon in the grand scheme of Destiny activities. The problem is that salvage is like an average of like a 15 to 20 minute gameplay loop, and that's if more people are helping you complete the objectives. If it's more often than not just you or you and one other guy, it's like a 25 to 30 minute excursion. It's insane. But then once you get to the boss fight, oh, you better believe everybody's going to pitch in and help because now they've completed all their bounties and now suddenly they give a shit. It's an activity that kind of makes sense on the surface, and it has fun moments, but the enemy density is way too low, and the engagement factor is also, by extension, incredibly low. But that's just those core activities. What about everything else that's been completely fucked up or completely neglected in Season of the Deep? Vanguard playlists have received basically no update. I mean, now you can focus engrams, which is fun, but when the strikes only work like half the time, or when the nightfalls aren't so insanely broken that you don't even want to bother, then yeah, it's cool that you can focus the engrams. Gambit has still been neglected for the last several years. And you know what? Let's just use this as an opportunity to segue into the reason why I personally think that we should all just boycott Destiny 2. It's a phrase that's being thrown around a lot more because, frankly, it's time. And I know some people are going to say like, oh, it's been a long time coming. I mean, yeah, it has been a long time coming. You're not wrong about that. The problem is that I would say prior to Witch Queen, there was still a consistency in the updates. There was still a consistency in the quality of content that we were getting that I didn't necessarily feel like there wasn't no reason to complain, because there was plenty of reason to complain, but there just wasn't a necessity to really demand a shift in the content. But starting with Witch Queen, which is something that I've complained about before, even though it's a good DLC, it was kind of the first instance of Bungie under-delivering an amount of content while over-delivering on certain aspects of the content. And it was this weird sort of dichotomy of good and bad that everybody just kind of came up in the middle and said, it's okay. You know, like it had such a banger campaign, it had such banger lore, it had such banger exotic weapons that we kind of just ignored the fact that it dropped so little content on us that it kind of boggles my mind. And this is the core of why I genuinely think Destiny 2 needs to be boycotted, because I have supported this game, I have loved this game, I have given money to this game for, almost a decade now since Destiny 1 launched, so it's been a long fucking time. And the fact of the matter is, we have gotten so little content for core playlists over the last 2-3 years that it's absolutely insane. It feels almost borderline illegal with the amount of marketing that they give us and then the amount of content that we actually get. But let me make one thing clear. Vanguard playlists are kind of doing okay. The fact that they sort of have, they've taken Battlegrounds and they've sort of regurgitated them and put them into the Vanguard playlist, where now you can get Battlegrounds as basically a pseudo strike. That was really smart of them to do. It keeps the Vanguard playlist relatively fresh, even if the Nightfall playlist has kind of been stagnant for the last couple of years. And I do hope that they continue to do that with the salvage activities. And honestly, I think deep dives could be put into the Nightfalls. I think that they're more than challenging enough that you could justify that expenditure. And there's more than enough mechanics to break up the monotony a little bit. But then you look at Crucible, you look at Gambit, and you look at, I guess, by extension, things like Trials and Nightfalls and whatnot, and you just see the utter lack of care, the utter lack of communication, the complete socio breakdown of what we're even trying to, of what Bungie is even saying that we're going to get. We've gotten, one new map in the last 2 years for Crucible, which was Disjunction, which is not really a new map, it's just a reskin of a different map that has, a little bit more visual flavor, but let's be honest, it's the same map. We've gotten 0 new maps, 0 new bosses, 0 new mechanics for Gambit, which blows my mind because at its launch, now I know some people hated Gambit at its launch because it was so long, the rounds were so drawn out, and if you went to the third round, God forbid, it was just like a 20-minute war of attrition where you just constantly invaded, you constantly banked, you constantly reset. That, yeah, a lot of people, I understand why they didn't like it, because it did kind of feed into this, holy shit, I just want to finish my Gambit pinnacles and it takes me 2 hours to do so. I understand where you're coming from. I preferred it. But then we even had additional things where they went, okay, it takes a little bit too long. If you go into a third round, it's sudden death. It's just boss rush. Everybody gets their super. Everybody starts with plenty of ammo. It's just the first to tank their boss. But then on top of that, we actually had bosses with different mechanics. We had bosses where you had to go around and shoot blights. We had bosses that would occasionally go immune, and you had to go hunt down the wizards, which I guess technically is like the standard modus operandi now. But we also had 2 other maps. We had the one from Tangled Shore and we had the one from Dreaming City. And Bungie kind of alluded to the fact that we were going to get more content as time went on for Gambit. And that sort of happened when we had, Season of the Drifter or whatever, where we got the Reckoning and we got Gambit Prime, where you had the exclusive armor sets. You had kind of like this renewed flavor into the maps because now everybody had specific roles that they wanted to fulfill. And it was lovely. It was an evolution on a game mode that, yeah, people were kind of struggling to get into, but it was an evolution nonetheless that people were enjoying. And yeah, it didn't really sway anybody to become Gambit mains, but it kept the Gambit mains happy, and it gave people who didn't really like it a reason to try it out and at least have a little bit more variety, a little bit more fun, and a little bit more reason to actually go in and play it. And then Bungie completely tanked it. They got rid of 2 maps, they got rid of Gambit Prime, which means that the armor sets are completely useless, they got rid of a ton of weapons, they completely simplified it, now it's just 1 round, now it's short as hell, and it's just become a frustration to play. Like, jumping into Gambit, as somebody personally who actually really enjoys Gambit, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing anymore. But that's just Gambit, right? But what about Crucible? What about the PvP, the thing that, a lot of people tend to play Destiny for? Well, we haven't got a new playlist or a new game type in, I'm not even entirely sure how many years, because, oh, don't get me wrong, there are there are some new playlists that come out, like 3v3 Rift or 3v3 Capture the Zone, which are exclusive to Trials, by the way. Well, I guess technically you can get Rift in competitive, but who the fuck wants to play competitive? We do have game modes like Fortress and Eruption, which are exclusive to Iron Banner, so you only get to play them like 2 or 3 times a season. And now that they're rotational, odds are if you're somebody who really likes Eruption, you're only going to get to play it once a season. Or if you're somebody who really likes Fortress, you're only going to get to play it like once a season, because now they're on rotations, so we no longer get consistent playlists. But the core playlist, the quick play one that everybody tends to jump into, has not seen a new game type in pretty much, I think, since like Warmind, damn near. That's probably way wrong, but I'm not going to bother to look it up because I just don't want to give them I'm done giving Bungie the benefit of the doubt, is my point. But the only new game that I can think of that we had gotten was technically Supremacy and technically Rift. The reason I say technically is because they're only new to Destiny 2's engine. They're not new to anything else because they already existed in Destiny 1 and they were already in Destiny 2 to some capacity, with the exception of Rift. Now, while I do really enjoy Supremacy and I do really enjoy Rift, again, they're not consistent playlists. Like, we can't go in and select Rift and just go play Rift. There's no game type selection, which is something that has been sorely missed in Destiny 2 and is probably never going to happen because it's, Bungie wants to continue oversimplifying. So we haven't gotten any new game types. We've gotten like one vendor refresh like in the last 2 years. It's still the same armor set. It's still the same weapons. There's nothing new to really go after. Yeah, we get like a pretty new shader and we get a ritual skin, but who the fuck wants to reset their Crucible rank twice to get those things? They don't. Most people don't even want to reset it once. The only reason they end up resetting it once is because Iron Banner comes around and they play the fuck out of that, usually at the end of the season, and then they just finish everything all at once, which means who the fuck is playing this game for the first like 7 to 8 weeks of the season? Nobody, because nobody gives a shit about PvP. So yeah, we haven't gotten any new weapons, no new armor sets, middling shaders, and we get the Ritual Pursuit, which you can get from Gambit or you can get from Vanguard playlists, which you'll probably have more fun doing, so just go do that instead. We've also gotten no new maps in years. I don't think we've gotten a new multiplayer map since like Forsaken, or damn near around that time. Yeah, again, I know I said earlier we got Disjunction, but Disjunction is just a reskin and a relayout of an older map. So it's a complete farce. They removed a bunch of maps that were really fun to play. They got rid of baller maps like Firebase Rubicon. They got rid of that awesome Dreaming City map that I desperately wish was still in the game because it was one of my favorite ones. They got rid of another Venus one that I forget the name of, but it looked fucking incredible. They got rid of that one that was basically just a glorified like turnstile where everybody was just basically running in a giant circle chasing each other, and that one, honestly, I had a lot of fun playing. I really missed that map. There was a couple of ones on Mars that don't exist anymore. They brought back one of them for this latest season, but again, that's my point, is they removed all this content. And they came out and said, we're not doing that anymore. We've upgraded the engine. We're no longer going to be vaulting content. And then they didn't bring any other content back, which leads me into my next point. Bungie's outright lies about the stability of this game and the frankly insulting level of support we have seen for the constant disconnects, error codes, cheaters, server instabilities, extended downtimes, extended maintenance periods, matchmaking not working, strikes straight up not displaying the correct enemies, people not being able to load into public zones, social spaces not pulling up vendors, Rahul not being able to focus engrams because, the stat page lied and he's giving you less than what you're supposed to get in terms of your stats for the already incredibly expensive exotic engram focusing, the harmonic resonator, or whatever the fuck it's called, for getting new weapon patterns being locked behind the paywall of the premium battle pass and not being given to free players who are the ones who missed out on the guns that are deep sight focused in the first place. Eververse armor sets becoming increasingly more expensive, expansions getting more expensive, seasonal content getting more expensive, and then Bungie not giving you the option to buy the correct amount of silver that you need to get the expansion, meaning you have to overpay to get the season, which is outright scummy and should be illegal. The fact that you can completely bypass the entire battle pass day one for what is it, like $100? Fucking kill me. Removing dungeons from the seasonal pass and making them a separate purchase, and then putting the best looking armor, the best mods, the best system for getting high stat gear, some of the best weapons with some exceptions here and there, some of the best encounter design, some of the best art direction, some of the best music, and you have to pay an additional $10 to just go play that. I'm not going to lie to you, it is probably more beneficial to not even buy the seasonal content and just watch a recap of it and just spend $10 on the dungeon instead. It's a better use of your money and it's a better use of your time. So if you've watched the video up to this point, you're probably wondering, why the hell then would you continue to support a developer and a game who has consistently not delivered on content and who has left core playlist sections completely to fend for themselves while doing the bare minimum to maintain player integrity and to maintain that their servers are up and running? Fact of the matter is, because Bungie has not constantly, but consistently promised updates. They've consistently promised new content. They've promised updated content. They promised no more content vaulting. They've promised to bring back old locations. They promised to bring back old content. They promised to bring back old missions. Like, I think it's next season we're getting the exotic mission playlist set, which, don't get me wrong, is pretty cool. Being able to go back and play the Outbreak Perfected mission or the Whisper mission or Presage just in a rotating playlist each week is really fun, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. The fact that it took them 2 years to bring that content back is fucking insulting, and it should be called out for the bullshit that it is. They delayed the LFG playlist from, Lightfall to most likely now with the Final Shape or the last season of the year, which is outrageously delayed, and it's most likely because they're going to stop support once we get to the Final Shape. But they've made all these promises, all these quality of life updates, all this content update, all these free additional changes, all these paid additional changes, all this cool promising new content, this epic conclusion to the Light and Dark saga. And we've believed them because they deliver it like they deliver like 2 to 10% of it, and then they leave 90% of it to fill out over the rest of the year. So they entice you, they tease you, they get you going, and then they blue ball you for 10 months out of the year, and then they deliver the Witch Queen. So they keep you in this perpetual state of your patience will be rewarded, your time will be rewarded, your effort will be rewarded, and then you sit there for 10 months going, when? And then it's somewhat rewarded, and because certain elements of it, like the Witch Queen campaign, is so good, you temporarily forget about the 10 months of bullshit you put up with to get to this point. But then they fuck up. And instead of delivering on expectations and satiating you at least a little bit at the end of that cycle, we got Lightfall. And Lightfall disappointed on every single level. Outside of Winterbite, none of the new exotics are currently really being used. They've all been outclassed, they've all been outshone, and they've all been outperformed. Some of them by year one exotics like Vesper of Radius, which is currently taking the community by storm, or Sanguine Alchemy. All of the exotic weapons, with maybe the exception of Winterbite, like I said before, are completely inconsequential, because legendary strand weapons do better than the exotic strand weapons do. Quicksilver Storm is incredible, but we've had it for 4 months prior to Lightfall, so it doesn't even really count. The one new strike is really cool. It's also only one new strike, and it's not even like a Grandmaster Nightfall, so who gives a shit? You play it once, you finish it, maybe you play it one more time in a Vanguard playlist when it randomly pops up, but you're not going out of your way to go re-experience it. It's not like Glassway, where it was super challenging, it was new, and it was included into the Grandmaster playlist, where there was this intention of you had to go master this content to get something out of it. That's not the case with this one. The Lost Sectors are admittedly pretty cool, but there's, again, not really a reason to go replay them unless there's an exotic. Nobody goes there to test weapons. Nobody goes there to fulfill bounties. They did them once. They go there if they're missing an exotic, and then once they get that exotic, they will forget about it. The open world is incredibly challenging, and I enjoy that aspect of it. There's also virtually nowhere near as many secrets as the Witch Queen. There's no real energy to it. There's no real tangible feeling to it because all the NPCs are like uploaded to a fucking cloud like this is 2049, and so there's nothing for you to really interact with. The characters you do interact with are so fucking forgettable that you don't really give a shit to go back and deal with them anyway, and so you don't really care to go explore Neomuna unless it's tied to an exotic quest. And again, this isn't even bringing up the fact that Lightfall didn't deliver us any new Gambit, any new PvP, and the season that went along with it was completely fucking forgettable. Nothing worth mentioning on that front. And then we got to Season of the Deep, where all those issues become compounded, and the instability issues, the maintenance issues, the disconnect issues, the error codes, the cheaters, the equipment not working, the vendors not working, things not showing up, has become a weekly occurrence. That is not a joke. Since its launch 5-6 weeks ago, at the time of recording this video, there has not been a single week where there has not been either a massive or a mid-tier technical issue that has prevented people from doing something that they need to do to further progress in this season or further progress in a quest adjacent to this season, including the dungeon, which you have to pay extra to go fucking get. Bungie does not give a shit about us. They do care about our wallets though. I'm not saying don't play Destiny 2. If you're somebody like me, you've already paid for all the content leading up to the final shape. And I will most likely buy the final shape because I want to see how this ends. I have dedicated almost a decade of my life to this game. I want to see how it ends. I need to see how it ends. I want to experience that. I want to have my Destiny 2 endgame moment. I need that. But leading up to it, I've already paid for it. But if you haven't, you shouldn't pay for it. And if you have, don't buy anything from Eververse. Don't buy a single emote, not a single shader, nothing. It's been said a billion times, and I know some people like Datto are a little bit more pessimistic about it. Other people are a little bit more optimistic about it, that voting with your wallets is the only way that anything with Bungie will ever change. They've said it once, and they will say it again. Destiny 2 is not ending with the end of the Light and Dark saga. Now, while I have my own doubts as to whether or not that's actually true, it doesn't change the fact that right now, Destiny 2 is in a really bad spot. Bungie's practices are incredibly scummy, their marketing is incredibly misleading, and they should not be supported at this point in time. Do the right thing. Do not pay for anything in this game. Again, I'm not saying don't play it. Destiny 2, at its core, is an incredible game. And the majority of the people working at Destiny 2, I'm sure, want it to be the game that we expect it to be, and are incredible people with incredible passion and incredible talent. But the higher ups have ruined this game at the time, and we shouldn't stand for it anymore.